Welcome to the On the Hook podcast.
Hey, welcome to On the Hook, United's podcast. Today we're going to talk barbecue because we do a lot of barbecue stuff. On the program, first off, my name is Adrian Blackney. I've been with United for about 5 years. I have a transportation background. One thing you'll find at United is a lot of varied backgrounds. Also on the program is Nick Hayes. Nick, introduce yourself.
I am United's attorney and compliance kind of person. Kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I have won a barbecue competition in my day, so I do feel like I have something to add to this podcast, although I have been usurped by our next guest. If you want to go ahead and introduce him, Adrian.
Well, that's why I had you on, Nick, because you do have a heritage with barbecue. Also on the program is with a bit more flair than myself or Nick can provide as far as it relates to barbecue is Scott Moore. Scott, tell us about your history with United.
Hi, I'm Scott Moore. I'm coming to you from the barbecue capital of I can't say South Haven. There's too many good. It's like living next to Mike Tyson, but my street anyway. I'm probably the best. I've been working for United for 17 years. Started as an agent in 2003, and been here ever since. They let me help them barbecue in 2014. I think they let me help that year. That's the year we won.
Is it really only 6 years you've been barbecuing with United?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been barbecuing? Period.
Competitively?
Yeah, competitively. Say that again.
That's it. That's the
6 years.
What was your experience with barbecue prior to 2014?
I used to barbecue a lot out on my back porch.
I mean, did you have like a legitimate smoker rig kind of thing, or like were you like just in a charcoal grill?
A dozen at one time or another. I usually run through 20 bags of charcoal a month. I never cook meat in the oven ever.
Under no circumstances.
Smoked or grilled.
So you were a patio porker for years and years.
Years and years.
Okay. Didn't you used to raise hogs or something?
I grew up on a farm. We did not raise hogs. That was my mother's requirement for moving to a farm. No chickens, no hogs. So we just had.
So United has a unique deal with barbecue. Part of it is Barbecue Fest, but when you try to set up a team for Memphis in May's Barbecue Fest, you just don't compete that one time. As it relates to your role with United, that strictly is barbecue, because you obviously wear a whole lot of hats that aren't barbecue. But the barbecue hat, you compete on average in a normal year. How many other competitions do you take United's team, Auto Be Grilling, and compete?
Between 7 and 10, not a ton.
That sounds like a ton to me. 7 and 10.
Yeah, but it's not. When you think about it, 2 or 3 of them are off season, so your season's probably March to June. That's about it.
Not this year. It's not.
Generally, you'd be March, April, May, and that's about the end of it. And you got one in the middle of the summer in Virginia, and one in September that we always go to in Illinois.
So what's going to happen? Do you know what? I know that Memphis in May pushed out. Have all of these other smaller competitions done the same thing and followed suit and pushed out?
Not yet. All have been canceled up to this point.
So no push out, just canceled.
They sent us all our checks back.
So this is the year that no one's going to get any practice when they roll into Memphis in May.
Yeah, most of the contests don't have a ton of money, so they really can't. They get they're all volunteers, and which Memphis in May is also, but they just don't have the financial backing to just postpone it to another. It doesn't work that way, so they'll probably just be next year and won't have one this year, I would suspect.
So in a normal barbecue season, these guys who are out there doing all the competitions, you're saying you're doing between 7 and 10. Like for these big teams who are doing everything, like how many are they doing?
Well, you have two main barbecue organizations. One's KCBS, that's in Kansas City, Missouri, and then MBN here in Memphis. And the MBN
which one's better? Just before you go on,
well, they're different. MBN's better, of course. Don't be ridiculous. But MBN only has about 15 contests or 20 at most, and KCBS has thousands.
Gotcha.
MBN is Memphis in May, right? That's Barbecue Fest.
Barbecue Network, yeah.
And it is not a KCBS sponsored
no
competition, right? Their version of that, KCBS's version of that would be what? The Royal in Kansas City?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Have we ever thought about competing in the Royal?
Well, you have to win something. See how it's kind of weird how that works.
You have to win a KCBS sanctioned event, which we're in 7 to 10 of them, right? They're all.
You have to be grand champion or reserve grand champion, and you get an invite to the Royal.
So if we were one of those two things at some point in time, we would absolutely go and compete at the Royal?
I think they had last time they had it on the Speedway out there, and it was it's full.
That would be cool.
It's a giant contest, man. And there's one down in Houston every year also.
How many pigs are you responsible for killing in a year? You think in a season?
Oh, not enough.
If you think about it, like how many racks of ribs do you prepare for XYZ competition, not Memphis in May? Just how many racks of ribs?
A general MBN, 8 to 10.
So that's 4 pigs right there.
I guess you throw the rest away. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're also going to do a butt, right? And so you figure you can get that out of the same pig.
We do 2 or 3 butts.
Okay, but that's out of those 4 that you've killed just for the ribs. You got to do a shoulder.
We don't slaughter our own hogs, so we just usually buy it separately.
I'm just curious. How many pigs were responsible for taking down? It's a lot.
So each contest, yeah, you have a minimum of 4 just with the ribs, right? So that probably gets you enough to do the rest of your stuff. But then you have to have 1 more whole hog because we do whole hogs. So
Goodness.
That's 2. That's 5 every contest, right?
5 pigs a contest, so that's 50 pigs.
If you 10 contests, you'd have leftover meat, obviously, but yeah, you'd have to kill 50 pigs.
Have you ever gone out and picked out a live pig?
Oh, when I was a kid, not for this, no, but I mean,
not barbecue. So let's say you did. let's say you were going to go pick out a live pig to barbecue, and you went. And when you were looking at it, you noticed in the corner of the barn shed there was a spider web that had something written in it.
It said some pig.
Would you still take that pig?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What's his name? Arnold or
I think it's Arnold.
Wilbur.
Yeah.
Why did we think Arnold?
Arnold's another pig, different movie.
Gotta be.
I think that's interesting.
It's pretty good. So you're going to help us today, Scott. We're all locked in our homes. I'm sure there's a lot of people locked in their homes and trying to feed themselves for a long period of time. You've got a recipe for us. I don't know what your recipe is. What are you going to tell us how to cook today?
I think we should stick with butt. That's the easiest thing to cook, and the easiest thing to you absolutely have to try really hard to mess up a butt.
All right, so I don't know what I'm talking about or what I'm doing or where I'm going. I'm going to go to the grocery store. What am I going to purchase when I get to the grocery store?
Well, I wish I had an example of one. You're looking for a bone-in Boston butt?
Bone-in Boston butt.
Yeah, not a shoulder necessarily if you're cooking it for yourself. Shoulders are really just for competition. They call those picnic. You see picnic, I wouldn't mess with it. It has
Steer clear of a picnic shoulder. You're looking for a Boston butt, bone-in Boston butt. Okay, and how much did that weigh?
10 pounds.
Okay.
8 to 12 pounds.
Is it frozen? Is it fresh? Is it thawed?
Most of the ones you get are frozen. They flash reasons to ship them, so almost all meat is frozen.
Okay, so I get it home. I'm gonna let it thaw out in the fridge or I thaw out in the cooler, and so I can't cook it frozen. I'm assuming.
You can you can't. It's hard. You can't inject it if you do that.
And the butts are not coming with skin on them. Is that correct? Usually.
No. Yeah, they just have a fat cap on the bottom.
What? Tell me what? I act like I don't know what anything is. What is a fat cap?
The butt comes from actually. So the butt comes from the shoulder, and the butt of the pig is actually the ham.
Man,
but
that's confusing.
It comes from the shoulder of the pig right here, and so all pigs have a layer of fat about that thick all the way around them.
About an inch.
Yeah, at least. A lot of it's trimmed off before you get the meat, and so some of that is left on the butt. When you get it, that's the fat cap. That's the outward side.
Okay.
Of the pig.
So what do we? So there's one side's got a fat cap on it.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing with this thing? Can I use a charcoal grill? I use a smoker. Obviously, I can use a smoker. That's what you use. That's what I personally use. Can I do this on a gas grill?
I mean, if you want to be sacrilegious and insult the nature of barbecue, sure, go ahead.
So you're saying barbecue, a prerequisite of barbecue is charcoal, is fire from charcoal, not from propane.
Or wood, yeah.
What about electric heat?
Again, just like gas, if you don't have any self-respect, you could always do that. You could boil the butt before you cook it if you like.
So you could theoretically do a sous vide.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
So, Nick, you bring up sous vide. I'm gonna press pause on this wonderful recipe. Nick lives on a street in Memphis that every year has a barbecue cooking competition. He lives on Buena Vista Place, I think, and they cleverly have named the competition BBQ. He had a neighbor that sous vide. Did he sous vide a butt, Nick?
I think he sous vide. No, it was like I think it was. It couldn't have been that big because it just fit in a little bowl. Like it wasn't like a full butt. I don't know what it was. Like maybe he cut some meat off a butt and put it in the water for a while. I really don't know what it. I think it was like it looked like pulled pork when he ended up with it.
It didn't taste good, and I think it won. The same competition I've entered 3 years in a row. I've taken it very seriously. I've, what I believe, put out a superior product. The best I've ever come in, I think, was like 4th, maybe. Nick, you've won it a couple of times at the onset of the competition, right? You haven't won it in a minute.
Hey, no.
Whoa.
This thing's happened 4 times.
What has? BBQ?
I've won it the first year, the 3rd year.
Okay.
That's 50%.
That is 50%.
But Adrian probably get a spreadsheet and we can figure that out.
So we're friends with Scott at the office. We talk about barbecue on occasion, and Nick was like, "Hey, let's have Scott come."
I credit my second win to Scott. Really?
Because he told you what to do or how to do something.
That was like at that point in time, Scott moved directly across the hall from me, and I was talking about this barbecue competition, and I was watching YouTube videos on how to cook it, and he was like, "Are you watching Malcolm Reed? Don't put mustard on your ribs. That is just stupid." And I was like, "Really?" He was like, "Yeah, it just makes it yellow and makes it taste weird. Just put on your salt, your rub, and put it in the smoker. You'll be all right." So I did it, man. I followed his directions. I think he told me to put parquet and like honey and some brown sugar and like Coke or Dr. Pepper or something in the ribs when you wrapped them. And man, I pulled those ribs off. I knew it was a winner. I'd never seen barbecue that good on Buena Vista Place. I was like, there ain't no chance I'm losing this.
And you won it.
I did. I won that year. Yeah.
And so how did you go about getting Scott to come?
Well, it was the next year. I think we invited Scott. I think we invited you that year, but you were kind of like, I don't know, man. I don't want to step on any toes. It seems like amateur hour. And then the next year you were kind of like, well, I did teach him how to do those ribs and he won. So maybe I should go do this thing and just kind of show him what's up. And so I think that's how Scott ended up coming this year.
So the competition is it's casual in nature, but everyone that competes in it basically lives on that street except for me and I guess except for Scott, and they take it pretty seriously, I would imagine.
Ludo, our training and development and operations guys entered some stuff in. There's people who don't live on the street who enter in all sorts of stuff.
But it seems casual. I remember I was sending Scott, like, you're allowed to cook it at home. That's one unique thing about this competition. You can cook at home and you just bring the product. So I was texting with Scott or calling him about giving the address, and he's like nervous about the turn-in times. What's going on with the turn-in times? He's attempting to replicate a sandwich that we actually ate in Kansas City at Joe's KC. It's called the Z-Man. And so he was doing his own little take on the Z-Man. Did you use brisket or did you do something else for the Z-Man or for your take on it?
We used the money muscle off of a Boston butt.
That's right. So you did a pulled pork essentially, but it's a money muscle. It's similar to that. It's the same part of the animal.
Yeah.
And it's got some cheese. It's got a onion ring on there, and I think you did a fried egg too, right?
We had a fried egg over easy, cheese. We had like smoked provolone, avocado on a brioche bun with some of that Irish butter.
The point is, Scott is coming in hot. He is like a nervous wreck. Like this is a $10,000 prize. Granted, there is no prize for this. You get like a plastic trophy, maybe $5. I don't know what it is, but
there was no cash.
No cash payout. He pulls into Nick's driveway. I think the turn-ins were like in an hour. He starts unloading stuff, immediately takes over Nick's kitchen. He's getting oil going so he can deep fry his own. Like there is no mystery why this man won that year.
My kitchen still smells like coconut oil.
Kitchen.
What's that?
You're still cleaning that kitchen.
Yeah, it's still a little greasy.
It was a disaster.
But the point is, Scott is a competition cook, and everyone else there is a casual cook that tries to take it serious that one day, and we were all really far out of our league when Scott got in the kitchen. It wasn't a disaster, clearly, because you won the thing. But how did it feel just to walk into BBQ, say hey to everybody, and walk out with the top prize and say bye to everybody?
I thought it was cool. There's a bunch of really nice people there too, and they seemed really happy to have other people in the contest and having to be a big event. It was a big event,
even when you lose to them. Yeah, they shut the street down.
There was 3 times the people that actually live there, right? 4, 5,
probably so.
Yeah. There's a lot of neighborhood and participation, like a lot of friends and family and people. So it was a big win. Another notch on the belt of Scott Moore's barbecue bona fides.
So Scott, we're not cooking a competition, but we're just trying to feed our family. So we've got this Boston butt. We've gotten it from the store. What are we doing with it after we thawed it out?
Well, I mean, it's really no more effort to cook it right than to cook it badly. So why not just do it that way every time?
Do it the right way instead.
Correct.
So what are you starting out with? You trimming down that fat cap?
A little bit. I'll leave a 1/4 inch if it's too thick.
All right.
1/4 inch fat cap. What are we going to put on it?
I pretty much do everything Malcolm Ray does, except for the mustard. He's every time I need to know how to cook, I always get on How to Barbecue Right.
HowToBarbecueRight.com. You're promoting right now as the place to barbecue right.
Yeah. If you want to cook something, and I don't care what it is, just go on that website and search for it. And he has a recipe. And if you follow it, it will be delicious. End of story.
And there's no shame. There's no shame in somebody teaching you how to do something.
It's just sad that people didn't start doing that 25 years ago.
So you're putting to start this thing out, you're just putting some dry rub on it, right?
Just putting rub on the meat and let it sit. The liquid in the meat will come out and bind it to the meat as well as anything. You're not just putting rub on it and putting it right in the smoker. You're going to let it come up to temp.
Let it sit. how long? Half an hour? 10 hours? How long am I letting it sit?
However long it takes to come up to room temp, or 50, 60 degrees.
So I'm taking it from 35 degrees out of my fridge, and I'm gonna get it to 60 degrees. So maybe an hour and a half, just sitting on the counter with rub on it.
At most.
At most. What about the temperature of the smoker? Am I putting that thing at 700 degrees like a pizza oven? How do I cook this thing?
I'd cook it at 250.
Okay.
You want to don't need to probe it right away, and basically that's the end of that process. If you want to inject it before you cook it, you can always do that. We do for competitions. We inject them. If I was cooking at home, I probably wouldn't inject it, but it's certainly no issue. And you can buy cheap injector needles at the grocery store and inject it with any number of things. We use Sweet Brine of Mine on our butts.
Sweet Brine of Mine is another product that if you live anywhere other than Memphis, you're gonna have to buy that online, probably, right?
Yeah, well, I do. I buy it from a place in Georgia, oddly enough, and then it's stored not 10 miles from my house.
And this is a powder. I imagine a lot of phosphates and that kind of thing, and you just mix it with a liquid and then inject that in there, and that's just gonna make it taste wonderful.
Right, and it doesn't need 4 or 5 hours of that. Anyway,
What kind of rub are you using?
we use for competition. We use Oak Ridge rub. There's a ton of good rubs out there that you can get now in the grocery stores, like Killer Hogs, Sweet Swine of Mine. Heath Riles has a ton of good rubs. It doesn't matter.
Most barbecue rubs, for the uninitiated, it's a lot of paprika and some peppers and some garlic and some salt, basically, right?
That's probably about most of it, yeah.
And it's just a combination of that is variances on that basic principle that you're going to find in a barbecue rub.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right, so we've gotten it to room temperature. We've got our pit or our cooking device stable at 250 degrees. I use the term stable. One of my early issues that I would have is I would get my smoker and I would try to get it to 250 or 225 or wherever I was going to cook it, and I'd try to get it there real quick. The problem is I had a whole head of steam going, and I ran right past it. And so I'd say, oh, it's 250, throw the meat on. Next thing I look down and I'm 350. I'm like, oops. So I now learned, I'm just lighting a little small fire, and, it's going to take its time to get there, but when it gets there, it'll hang on to it a whole lot better.
Right. And if you're talking about cooking in your backyard, you want to zone cook, right? You want to have your fire in one place and the meat in another place.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't hurt to let the temp climb. You can put it in there when it's 150 if you want to. If I was doing it at home, I probably would do it that way, and that way I can see it approaching the temp I want and start cutting off the air.
Gotcha. Cutting off the air. That's a basic premise of a pit master, is controlling fire, right?
Right. And you always just control the air on top. The air on the bottom can stay open. It really doesn't matter.
All right, so I've got my meat on my stable smoker at 250 degrees. We know that the food safe temperature for pork is 140 degrees, and I'm safe to eat it at 140. How long do I need to let that cook?
Well, you're not going to cook it to 140.
Well, why not?
It's going to be extremely tough at 140 degrees and fatty.
That's what makes you the pit master, Scott. So what do I need to do? How long do I need to cook it? Does it matter how long I cook it, or is it more about what temperature I cook it to?
Doesn't make any difference how long you cook it. It's just all about temperature.
So where do I need to take this Boston butt that I got from Kroger? Where do I need to take it?
What temp?
Yeah, 190?
210 to
205 degrees. And how long is it going to take me to get a 10-pound butt that I took it at 60? I got it on that 60 degrees, and I threw it on a 250 degree smoker. If I want to have this for lunch on a Saturday, when do I need to start cooking this thing?
Midnight.
So we're looking at a 12-hour cook to get it to raise from 60 degrees to 205 degrees on a 250 degree smoker.
Yeah, it'll be 10 or 11 hours. Then you let it sit for a while after it's cooked, and
So Scott, so I've heard different places, and maybe you can give us your opinion on this, is that a piece of meat can only take so much smoke
correct,
before it, starts it won't be able to take anymore, and it can sometimes affect the flavor of it. So are you wrapping your butts at a certain point with foil, or I know they do brisket and paper, but what is your strategy for wrapping, and how long do you have smoke on it before you just let it sit and heat?
On butts, you want to really all you're looking for is color. And the issue is if you wait too long to wrap, so you want to know, you don't have to probe a butt necessarily. You can usually tell by looking at it what it is.
Yeah.
But really just trying to get a good color, trying to get a good bark on the outside, and then you wrap it. It's not as crucial with butts as it is, say, with ribs, where you don't really want to bark on ribs at all.
Right.
You're trying to build up a bark on a butt. And that's why a lot of people cook briskets. They never even wrap at all. They just cook them the whole way through with no wrap. And they're successful at it. So really, all I'm trying to do, I'm a big fan of wrapping. Just trying to get it a good color. Around 145, what happens is the pores on the meat close and it won't accept smoke anymore. And all that smoke begins to build up on the outside of the meat, and it puts a bitter taste.
Kind of like creosote.
Exactly like creosote. And it's basically some type of, grease mixed with smoke, mixed with, it doesn't taste good.
Tuffy Stone, a past grand champion of Memphis in May, I think last year he won. He likens it to using smoke as seasoning. He likes to sprinkle the smoke on, and when he's done using the smoke, he's not throwing any more wood chunks on there. He's wrapping it up to keep the smoke off. We didn't address that, so we've got the temperature, but to create the smoke, you're not getting smoke out of charcoal. What do you make where does the smoke come from? Because charcoal fires generally don't have a whole lot of smoke to them.
You do get smoke out of the charcoal, but the flavor is what you're trying to get out of it, and we use hickory, apple, and pecan.
Hickory wood, apple wood, and pecan wood. Chunks or chips, or does it matter?
I use big chunks. Some people soak them in water. I don't. I just burn them up.
Seems to me that soaking them in water would just cause you to have trouble with your fire. I don't know what benefit you get out of that. It's going to smolder before you even get smoke out of it.
No, it won't. A good hot fire won't affect it. It just makes it take that much longer to
start
be
smoking.
Consumed. Smoke slower and longer. I personally like to pour smoke on a butt early. You can't pour smoke on ribs; they'll turn black. But on butt, you want it to turn black. You want to start building up that bark on the outside.
Which makes sense because the bark, the outside of the shoulder, the butt, takes up a very small amount of the actual meat, whereas a rib, there's not a whole lot of meat on a rib. So when you go actually shred the butt up, you're fine having a whole lot of dark because that's going to be mixed in with a whole lot of not dark meat, correct?
Yeah, and on that note, you always want to cook that fat cap down on anything that you cook. Always cook the fat cap down because the fat cap will not gain bark, and basically you're putting your meat down on the grill side and it won't bark up either, so you have no bark at all on your butt. So always fat cap down. That fat doesn't go through the meat anyway, it just runs off the side. What does congeal.
I'm furiously taking notes here. I'm going fat cap down. I'm bringing it to the room temperature. I'm gonna pour smoke on early, meaning I'm gonna put those chunks in the fire. And then is there a temperature at point that I'm going to wrap it to try to get it through a stall? We won't get into the science of a stall. It's hard for the meat starts sweating that fat off that's internal, and it just keeps cooling it down. And so there's a temperature that's hard to get past. So a lot of people, they'll wrap it up to help them to get through that, speed the process up. What temp are we going to wrap these things up?
You're going to wrap them about 145, anywhere in that range from 145, 165.
And I'm not unwrapping until we're at 205. Is that right?
Correct. The stall is around 180. And
so it might sit at 180 for 5 hours.
You're wrapping to get through the stall, yes, but you're also wrapping to stop smoking the meat. No more smoke. So that's the big thing is I want to stop my smoke. The stall is several degrees away yet, still 25 degrees away. But I want to stop smoking the butt. I'm happy with how much I put on it. I got bark. I don't want to just keep putting smoke on this and it just builds up on the outside. So that's why we do that.
So rough estimate, I'm going to be on the smoker for 4 hours and then I'm going to wrap it and then I'm going to go another 8.
4 to 6. It's a color issue.
So I'm putting this thing on at midnight. I got an alarm set for 4 a.m. to get out there and wrap that sucker up.
Or 6 a.m. 6
Or
a.m.
6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
You get up at 6 a.m. every day anyway, right?
That's correct. And 4 and 2.
All right, so we've gotten it to 205. Should this thing what's it going to be like on there? Is it going to be wobbly?
So when
Is that the official term?
When it gets north of 195 degrees, it starts to really the connective tissues in the meat really let go, and it will absolutely fall apart at 205. That's what they call pulled pork. If you see a lot of places you watch on TV, they'll have the meat, the pork, and they're chopping it with knives, and it's like big chunks of meat and chopping it with machetes. A properly cooked pork will absolutely fall apart
in your hands.
Correct.
And word of caution, when you go to grab this thing, even if you got the biggest gloves on ever, you go to grab this ball of juice off of your smoker, invariably there is going to be a teeny tiny puncture in the bottom of that, and it is going to squirt just the hottest lava on your legs in your life.
Yeah, that never happens. But
so be very careful.
Yeah, and you ruin every article of clothing you have. So yeah, you don't wear nice shoes or pants. Even
so when you're taking this thing off, you letting it sit?
Yeah, you're gonna want to let any meat you cook sit for 5 to 15 minutes, depending on what it is. 20.
So you're letting it sit, bringing down the temperature a little bit on it, and then if you want to serve it up for lunch that day, you're taking it out after you let it sit for a little bit, and then you're just pulling it.
So if you're talking about a butt, you can just pull it out and pull it right away. Cover the dish that you put it in once it's pulled and let it sit like that. That works just as well.
So what if my friends that were coming over for lunch that day, they cancel on me, and instead they're going to come over for dinner? You got any problem with me just taking that butt, not even touching it, wrapping it in a towel and putting it in a cooler and just letting it sit for 4 or 5 hours and then doing it?
I would probably pull it and put it in a pan, cover the pan, and just refrigerate it. And then when you want to cook it, you can just heat it right back up.
How many people am I going to feed out of a 10-pound butt?
You're supposed to feed 20 people.
Wow. So if I've only got 5, I have 7 people in my household. I got 5 kids. That's going to last me a little bit. How do I need to reheat that?
You just cover it, put it in we use gallon Ziploc bags, and then you can microwave it. It'll be delicious, really, within 2 days.
I'm glad that's what you said, because I was afraid I was going to get in trouble. That's exactly what I do. I just take some and I put it in a bowl and I throw it in the microwave for 20 seconds, and it gets wet again, and it just looks amazing and tastes wonderful.
Yeah, when you go to a restaurant, all restaurants pre-cook ribs, pulled pork, everything. Once they run out, they can't cook more. It takes too long.
Scott, it's been a pleasure. I think we have a wonderful recipe here that's gonna get us through these hard times. When's the last time you cooked a shoulder at home? A butt?
It's been a long time because nobody eats pulled pork here but me. They're very, very snooty here. They only touch ribs. They will turn their nose up at pulled pork.
I cooked 10 racks. 10 racks of ribs on Saturday. We'll have to talk about maybe rib recipes next time.
On your backwoods?
On my backwoods smoker. I cooked 3 racks on a green egg, and then the next few days later I cooked another 3 racks on the green egg, and then I bought a case of ribs, which is 10 racks, and obviously you can't cook 10 racks on a green egg. It's just too many. So I did that on the backwoods, and I gotta say, I rubbed them in mustard and sriracha, and they turned out wonderful.
The only problem I have with mustard is if you use too much, it's always yellow. No matter after it cooks, it's yellow, and it looks like it's sweating brain fluid. And it doesn't.
Oh, they were so good. They were just delectable.
You can just overuse mustard, and it has a yellow.
I get a big one of those big gallon tubs of mustard, like the industrial, like you get it at Costco. I just take the lid off of it and I dip the ribs into that vat and pull them out. And I try not to wipe it off too much, because I don't think you can have enough French's yellow mustard on your ribs before.
You're like dredging the ribs in mustard.
That's a good term, dredge.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's advocating that.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
We'll talk to y'all all later. Next time on the Hook Podcast.
We go.